Thank you for tuning in to episode 3 of The Men Are Talking. This week we discuss a topic near and dear to my heart, cars. We also welcome a new contributor. Please enjoy this week's episode of The Men Are Talking. Oh yeah, and the new music was done by our buddy Adam. Be sure to check him out on SoundCloud on Adam Project. All right, back to the show. Welcome to this week's podcast. The Men Are Talking. We're going to get started. So, we are from our studios at Trail South. Today, we've got me, Larry. We've got Bill. Say hi, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Say hi. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Joining us for the first time.
Yes.
We have Ferg. Say hi, Ferg.
Hi, Ferg.
And unfortunately, the unknown podcaster died. We did find out from his obituary that his name was actually Brent. And that's why he went by unknown podcaster, because we would have made fun of him. So today we have a new unknown podcaster joining us. Say hi, new unknown podcaster.
Hi, new unknown podcaster.
And as you can tell, we got him because he sounds the same as
you guys
Trayless.
are great at casting.
But I'm glad Brent is gone, because apparently he was known to his friends as Bent Brent, and I don't even know what that one
I
is.
don't.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is the Spruce Bruce.
Good guys.
Your bread sucked.
Long time caller, first time listener. I really appreciate that you guys invited me to join the group this week, and I went through the previous episodes, which everyone should. And just to get an idea of what this is about. And that Brent guy, like, two things. First of all, that guy interrupted a lot.
He did talk a lot.
Second of all, I noticed that last week's episode had a very heated debate about mandolins, and I'm just wondering if Bill is still such a mandolin apologist this week. Bill?
Well, I still like the 12-string mandolin. The potato slicing mandolin, not so much. No. But I can't believe that Brent told you about that, like with his dying words.
It was in the obit.
Yeah.
I listened to the damn episode on Spotify, as anyone can and should.
And did I correct me if I'm wrong, did you say long-time caller, first-time listener?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very nice.
All right, guys.
The hydrocodone's catching up with you.
And by the way, just a special shout-out to Larry's better half for 3 days after my accident supplying me with protective kitchen gloves.
She was
You're
concerned.
3 days late and 2 tips short.
She was concerned it was too soon, and turns out it wasn't soon enough.
All right, guys. So our topic today that we're going to be starting off with is, what is your favorite car you've ever owned? Now, I'm going to actually rephrase that. What's your favorite vehicle you've ever owned?
Okay, very exacting.
Yeah. Well, not so much. Well, I mean, what if it's a motorcycle?
That's
what
right.
if it's a truck?
That's what I'm
Bicycle.
saying. That's good.
What if it's a bicycle?
What if it's a go-kart?
What if it's a go-kart?
Well, Will, who couldn't be with us tonight, I told him we changed the name to Vehicle, and he said good because my favorite was a Matchbox car.
It was the General Lee,
Teaches him.
because he liked to jump it around the house when he was a kid. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll start it off with the new guy. Ferg?
All right, well, I'd have to say it's my current vehicle that I'm not allowed to drive, but it's
Thanks, Florida.
but it's an '06 Ford F-150. No, it's easily the nicest vehicle I've ever owned. I mean, yeah, everything else is.
Life hasn't been good to you, has it?
No, it has not.
I really thought this was going to come down between a choice between Uber and Lyft.
Well, I mean, I don't actually own those. You know?
Soon.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry.
Jeff
If it-
from Lyft with that Tesla.
if we're like a
favorite car.
rent-to-own type thing, then I'm well on my way.
All right. Our other newbie, UPC.
All right. Well, this one's tough because I've owned a lot of cars.
Since this isn't Brent, I'm sure it won't drag on too long.
And very different types of cars.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. Anyone out there who's ever owned a British car, a vintage British car, surely you know the love-hate relationship you have with them. And
No, I don't.
We do, but
Don't call me
don't
Shirley.
call me Shirley. Sorry.
Had to be sad.
but let's say we've owned a British car.
We've owned a British car.
And in this case, my 67 Mini is of an absolute roller skate on rails, fun car to drive, but it's not fun to drive for very long. I drove it all the way from Gainesville to Pensacola one time, and that was heinous. Yeah.
Why? Why?
First 15 minutes, it's like
this
being,
is so great.
Yeah, it's like,
It's like,
yeah, when the
no.
gearbox at 65 miles an hour, the gearbox is whining like it's about to throw itself
Like
apart.
Brent.
I thought it was.
Yeah. The other is my old my honorable mention goes to my old 1987 Dodge D250, which is the last year of the slant 6 motor for Chrysler. The 225 slant 6. What a smooth, indestructible engine. Very underpowered for a 1-ton truck, but it didn't matter. I drove it all the way to Vegas and back, loaded, heavily laden with all my stuff. It was so much fun. It had the 4-speed with the granny first. You could constantly go to a U-Pull-It yard and upgrade the truck at any time, which I did. With 2-barrel carbs and intake manifolds and things like that. Question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just for other Mini Cooper owners, around Live Oak, don't the sidewalks get more narrow? Isn't that an important tip to have? Just so you know.
Live Oak, Florida?
Yes. Oh, you drove it on the highway.
Yes, I did.
Oh,
I drove it on
okay, I'm sorry.
I-75 and I-10.
I'm sorry, I was confused.
Yeah.
I'm better now. I understand. Okay.
Yeah. But no, my favorite car that I've ever owned, and I've owned 2 of them because one of them got totaled by someone who ran a red light.
It wasn't
T-boned
Ferg.
That's not why I lost my license.
But I have another one, a replacement. It's a 1991 Honda CRX SI. What a perfect driver's car. The beauty of the styling of Honda at that time. Keep in mind, this is when the NSX came out. The first gen, or actually second gen Integra. It was the head person at Honda, who in charge of styling, had a very coherent theme across all of their products. Very beautiful, very ergonomic. The dashboard, the center console is slanted towards the driver. So all of your controls are facing you and not just straight up and down the middle of the car. As a person who is 6'4", I could still fit in this car with the proper seat adjustment. And it was so much fun to drive. And easily maintained, easily modified in tasteful ways. Screw you, Rice Boys.
And he means the family rice.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were
And
Italians.
being a hatchback, which hatchbacks have completely hatchbacks and wagons are the 2 body styles that need to come back because they're so spacious, they're utilitarian,
Start
but you
with
still
the-
get to drive them like a car.
Just one question. How tall was Brett?
He was 6'4".
It's remarkable
I know.
coincidence.
Yeah.
Remarkable coincidence. And by the way, if you're a younger person and you're 6'4", the advantage of having such a small car is on a date, you already start in the back seat. So, I mean, it's kind of a plus.
Well,
There is no back seat.
well,
funny you should mention that because I have actually had intercourse in a Honda CRX.
Whoa, jeez.
The previous one that got wrecked, but
That's how it got
it required opening.
Wrecked him.
It required opening the sunroof. We were parked. I went from fifth gear to park.
You did listen to the episode.
And had to open the sunroof. Fortunately, it was a nice, beautiful, starry night. And my lady friend and I, we moved to the passenger seat.
Lady.
Because it's only a two-seat car, folks. It's only a two-seater, as all cars should be, unless you're a breeder.
Hey, I'm a breeder and I have a two-seater.
Yes.
Hey, that rhymed.
Two-seater breeder. Interesting.
That sounds like a...
Hi, Haley.
That sounds like a new Bachman Turner Overdrive song. But yes, one can successfully make love in a Honda CRX, even if one person is 6'4".
I'm pretty sure in a Honda CRX it's not called making love.
It's called the making love.
I believe the kids call it smashing.
Well, you know,
Putting a stank in that
it's
car.
all dynamic. It's
Wow.
a conversation.
Hey, are we sure Brent's really dead?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
The Honda CRX is
Yeah.
is
I mean,
truly.
I didn't have anything to do with it,
Not as far as I know.
but as far as anyone knows, yeah, wasn't me.
We're going to exhume the body and kill him again.
You never know.
Just for fun.
I'm not sure there is. I don't think there's any laws against that.
For shits and giggles.
There might be. There
Yeah.
might be. Well, probably not in Florida.
Well, apparently my story is done. Who's next?
Paul.
Well, hello. Probably my favorite car, and I like the car I have now, which is a 2002 Ford Thunderbird. That year that they made for a couple of years, that throwback Thunderbird. And it's a great car, but my first car was a '76 Camaro, and it didn't have much by way of frills, but it was a great car to drive. And it's silly but kind of endearing that I only had it for about a year and a half before I wrecked it, but wrecked them.
Nearly killed it.
I bombed myself. But but it had an 8-track player in it, and the 8-track changer.
Can't hide money.
It was a '76 Camaro, and the 8-track had a short in the changer button. So if you wanted to go from
It also had one in the driver's seat.
there you go. And speaking of back seats, and so if you want to go from track 1 to track, for those of you, by the way, that don't understand 8-tracks, 8-tracks actually have 4 different channels or tracks, and the 8-track has to do with the recording. So you'd expect
Left
that you
and
would,
right.
you would push a button. Yes, you would push a button to switch from tracks 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. No, you just go from 1, 2, 3 to 4. So I couldn't do that. So what I would have to do is look at my little collection of 8-tracks, and if I want to go from track 1 to track 3, I'd have to find something that was close to the end of the track, listen to the rest of that song, switch the track 2, pull it out, but it's something else that was the end of the track, so I can get to track 3.
Technology hacks, workarounds are so much fun.
And then if I got lucky, every once in a while I'd be like, God, and I hit the button and it would work, and so
Paul hacking before
there
computers.
you go.
8-track.
But that was a
Was
great-
it just stereo or was it a quadraphonic 8-track?
It was actually quadraphonic. It had excellent. What did it have?
Yeah, class.
Phonics.
There you go. It wasn't JBLs. It was
Pioneer.
no Blaupunk.
Ooh,
Look out!
ooh, you really can't hide money.
Stand back.
Stand back.
You stole it out of a BMW.
So yeah, great car.
All right. Bill?
All right, so there will not be Heidi Interrupts tonight. Heidi retired tonight early, but before she did, she came out and told Larry that my favorite car that I ever owned was my dad's 68 Volkswagen Beetle.
She did tell me that.
And she's like, wow, Larry's going to realize you and I don't know each other that well after 36 years of marital bliss. 7 of the happiest years of my life. Glad she retired. But it was a cool car. It was a fun car. I learned to drive on it, learned to drive stick shift on it. My brother and I redid the body on that thing twice. Went from the light baby blue that it originally came in when the Führer requested it to a metallic silver and then a medium blue, much like the blue on the L&M blue cigarette pack, about that color, or the Bud Light can. But yeah,
I thought by body you were going to refer to Becky Reynolds.
I wasn't driving then.
Never heard of the woman. Okay.
Don't anyway. Wow. Yeah. First time denier, last time listener. But my favorite car that I ever owned was my 1996 Nissan Maxima, champagne, gold, tan, whatever, with the fin, you know, the tail, whatever you call that, moonroof, spoiler, that's the word. Yeah, spoiler alert. And moonroof, wide racing tires. It was difficult going to that car because we went from a minivan. Yes.
So what is the difference between a moonroof and a sunroof?
Spelling.
Time of day.
Yeah.
They only used it at night.
No, it was difficult going from a minivan to a Nissan Maxima because we took it the next week on a road trip, and I didn't have anywhere to put my Cheetos box. I was like, where do I put this? But I had that thing going up over 115 miles an hour across the I-10 bridge.
You didn't do that.
I did. It did. Yeah. Yeah. Statute of limitations were good.
Oh, okay.
But the front end felt like it was starting to get squirrely, so I backed her down. Me and Chuck
That's because the
Yeager.
spoiler was in the back.
Was
not
it
the front.
starting to shake?
was starting to shimmy.
Ooh. Was it sluggish?
No.
Like a wet sponge?
No. It was, but the biggest thing about that car, the thing I liked about it, there are a couple interesting things. One, baller on a budget, went to get new tires on it, and I had the wide racing tires, and I went and got touring tires, and I asked the guy, what's the difference? And he said, when you get off the exit of Brent Lane, and you take that, or off the exit of I-110, turning onto Brent Lane, maybe not take it at 65, take it at 55. And I was like, okay, we'll take the passenger tires. But that car, I drove it for work, was out in the field all the time, and the odometer broke at 175,000. My son had already wrecked it twice. And then I gave it to my son. He rolled it off a mountain, climbed out the moonroof, bent the A-pillar, which spiderwebbed the glass on the front of it. They flipped it back over, took it to a garage. They got it started, put a brick on the accelerator, burned all the gunk out. The AC and the radio never worked after that, but
It was as good as new.
He drove it for 2 more years, and then I gave it to my daughter.
That's a going to town rig.
And then I sold it to my nephew for, I think, $400. And he traded it in on Craigslist, traded it for a Motorcycle starts with a K.
Kawasaki.
No, it's not. I always say it wrong.
Oh,
It's
KD.
Asian. It's not a K.
Yamaha.
I started to say Kubota.
Ducati.
No, the
Ducati.
Swedish one.
It's got a K in it,
KD.
and it's not.
There's no K
Yeah.
in it. It's
Yeah.
a C.
Anyway, Ducati. But that thing, I think we put at least 250,000 on it. Can't verify it because the odometer broke. And boss, if you're listening, all those mileage reports were accurate.
All right, so I guess it's
Excellent. Excellent.
I guess it's my turn.
Mhm.
So mine is like UPC. It's a car I do actually still own, and like Ferg. It is.
He's allowed to drive his, but
It currently doesn't drive. It's a 1968 Mustang.
Nice.
This car was my dad's car. All growing up, I mean, to the point that this is the car that brought me home from the hospital when I was born.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It is. It's the car I took my driver's test in. Not the car I learned to drive in. I had to learn to drive in my mom's '76 Toyota Celica 5-speed because my dad couldn't drive a stick. So he said I was going to learn to drive a stick before I drove an automatic. As long as I learned to drive her car, I could take his car to do my driver's.
So your
test.
dad was living vicariously through you.
My dad went
no,
the
my
opposite.
dad did not want me
To repeat his mistakes
Correct.
of not learning how to
Correct.
drive a goddamn stick.
Correct.
Okay.
So now,
can we just call it standard?
It is
Sure.
the standard random.
yeah. Well,
Manuel.
my dad is no longer with us.
Rest in peace.
But he sold me the car. And now, thanks to
Oh,
his
what an ass.
thanks to his insistence on me learning to drive a stick, I am now planning to change the transmission in the Mustang over to a manual.
As one should.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. I'm putting a 6-speed manual in it, and yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Lee Iacocca would be very proud.
he would.
That you're tainting a Ford product. Yes, Lee Iacocca would definitely.
Lee Iacocca designed the Ford Mustang.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Fuck me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
God
That's
damn
going a
it.
little far, but
Yeah, no. Yeah,
Okay.
you're right. You're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Bill.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt,
Yeah.
but when you're done with the Mustang, I have a question for you.
Is it about a Jeep?
Yes.
I'm sorry. As in when he's done fixing the car. You mean
No,
right
no,
now?
no,
Oh,
no.
okay.
I don't think.
Just
I
wanted.
think we'll be
So
retired.
just
by
wanted
then.
to clarify.
Yeah, you were going to interrupt now so you could ask a question at a
Well,
later date.
Well,
I did the hand signal, live long and prosper. It's not the same now with these fingers.
Yeah, it's like a
Uh,
weird shocker.
it's the minivan. Thank you.
for those of you not watching the video, which doesn't exist, William cut his
Just the tip.
little pinky and ring finger on his right hand. So when he does the wonderful Vulcan live long and prosper, well, it's a little painful and it looks, shall we say, different.
I didn't prosper.
Yeah, did not.
And the fingers barely are living long.
Not long.
All right, Bill. So
I was going to ask you, Larry, are there any other cars that you happen to be, I don't know, rebuilding at this current time?
There is a '94 Jeep YJ that I actually finished today.
Dun, dun, dun.
You're never finished.
Well, okay, it's not finished. It became roadworthy today, and of course it rained because it's a Jeep, so it doesn't have a top, doesn't have doors, doesn't have any of that stupid stuff that
Mine does.
cars have.
That Land Rovers have?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just point of clarification, because I've heard this before, and I don't know if it's true. But when the Army had Jeeps, I thought Jeep was actually an acronym. Is that true or not?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends on who you ask.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. Some people say Jeep was GP, general purpose.
It also stands for just essential engine parts, meaning that you could fix it on the side of the road with a hammer
Right. And it also
and a
stands
bayonet.
for, it also stands for just empty every pocket. Because when you buy a Jeep, you automatically start buying stuff for the Jeep.
For example, I bought a new bumper for my Jeep. I've never seen anyone take a Sawzall to a car before. Larry had no problem taking a Sawzall to my Jeep TJ.
You should have been over at my house last week when my brother-in-law John and I took a Sawzall to my fenders. Get rid of them.
This segment brought to you by Milwaukee Tools, owner of trademark Sawzall,
We were
reciprocating saw.
We were actually using a Milwaukee Sawzall.
There we go.
Kaboom.
And a Milwaukee side grinder. And a Milwaukee impact.
This is strictly work for professionals, so I'm not saying you should try this at home, but I do want to know, did the saws all work both for your purposes with your fenders and for Bill's bumper?
Yes.
Well, then that's fantastic.
It's in the name.
Segway.
It's saws.
Segway.
All.
Well, actually, Segway is my favorite vehicle.
You buried the lead.
But you never owned it.
Segway, friend of mine, many moons ago, up in Maine, bought a house that should have been condemned. While he was remodeling said house, went up into a room and found a authentic Milwaukee Sawzall.
Wow.
Later, used same Sawzall, Milwaukee Sawzall, to literally, and I don't mean like literally you
don't
say
mean
that every
figuratively.
time.
Right.
I
You
mean
don't
literally
figuratively, you mean literally.
cut his entire house in half with that Sawzall, and we jacked up the back half of his house to match the front of his house.
Wow.
That thing was older than, my grandmother, and she farts dust.
Well, she's dead.
Depends.
I was going to say, I didn't know she was dead, because for those of you in Vegas, you might be able to catch the Late Show.
You can catch her at the Golden Corral at 3:30.
Is she a fartist?
A Faustist. She's a Faustist. So what did you do to that Jeep, Larry? Honestly, seriously, what did you do to that Jeep? Because I saw it and you said, it's almost done. And I was like, no, it's not. This is like a year ago.
Oh, yeah. It was not.
He lied.
That was a year ago. I didn't lie. I just came up with some more stuff. No, I just came up with some more stuff to do. Again, just empty every pocket. I
2 batteries.
I put in a dual battery setup with Optima batteries. If you guys are listening, I can take a couple.
You realize that we are plugging for no fucking compensation all kinds of corporate
I want to
interests.
disagree. I want to disagree. Again, another Segway. Great vehicle. Local Pensacola golfer Joe Durant won a golf tournament. And at one time, UPC, he won this golf tournament. And he said something to the effects of nothing better than winning this golf tournament than going home and mowing my back 40 with my John Deere tractor. And he wasn't sponsored by John Deere tractor. But when he got home, UPC, there was new UPC, I said your name wrong. There was a brand new John Deere tractor sitting in his driveway. So you never know. You might get home and there's a Mini sitting in your driveway.
There is.
Or I'm going to get home and my house
There
will be
is.
cut in half.
I think
good marketing from John Deere, by the way. That's pretty brilliant.
Yeah.
I think we should start calling him New PC.
No, what is it? What's that weird blocky UPC code that they have these days
The
now?
QR codes.
Oh, that's the one. Okay. Yeah.
Well, we're not going to call you that.
Yeah.
No, because QR is too close to.
And I can't believe you said
QR.
UPC code.
No, I said, what is the new blocky? I don't know what I said.
Yes.
Look,
Anyway.
you want to know my PIN number?
Anyway. We already know your
Or
PIN
do you know
number.
where an ATM machine is?
I don't know.
We already know
I've
your
got it
PIN
written
number.
on the back of my cat card.
Yeah.
We already know your PIN number. You filled it. You put it into your application.
Oh, crap.
We asked that question of everybody.
Wait.
He's the first one to actually put it in.
I
I
was
like to be
grieving.
complete and thorough.
He was grieving at Brent's funeral and wasn't thinking straight.
Well,
Yeah.
to go back to your question, added dual batteries, flat fenders. I have taken out all of the
Wire
interior.
nuts.
Yeah.
Don't get me started
One
on
should
wiring.
remove wire nuts. I've had to do that from the vehicles I've
Oh, I know I did. I did. The previous owner was supposedly an electrician, which may have been true, but he was definitely a house electrician, not an automotive electrician, because the friggin' battery cable that goes down to the starter was wire nutted together.
That was-
Believe it or not. Believe it or not.
That
There's a building electrician that we all know. Believe it or not, and who shall remain nameless, that is scared to death of DC wiring of any kind.
Yeah.
He has no idea how to deal
Right.
with
Oh,
a
'Cause it's
car
completely
wiring
different.
loom, anything.
Yeah.
It's not completely different.
is his name
altogether.
Nicola? It's not.
It's
all
not completely different.
Wait, is his name Nikolai?
Well, believe it or not, he
Afraid
used
of
to, he used
DC?
to, he used to
Or
wrestle.
is it Thomas?
Are you talking
Yeah,
about
Edison.
Are you talking Edison?
Edison.
And
Yeah,
Tesla.
no, Tesla
yeah.
was DC. Edison.
By the way, that frigging brought to you by Haley.
So I have a question because I'm not nearly as. There are many people, dear listeners, at this table who know lots about cars. They're really, and it's fantastic, and I'm pretty stinking ignorant. So I have to ask this question: why are wire nuts to deal with?
Because you don't put a wire nut in a car.
Okay, so how about what is a wire nut?
Okay. Well, you know in
Somebody
your
was
house,
crazy about
you
wires.
know in your house where two wires are connected, like when if you took
Sure.
a switch out or whatever,
Sure.
you've got that thing that screws
Oh.
on to hold the wires together.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
wire
together.
nut.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah.
It's for stationary stuff.
Okay.
for solid
you've
wire,
got-
not stranded.
Yeah, you've got a 4-gauge battery cable to your starter
Mhm.
that someone put a wire nut.
I
on.
got you. No, it makes sense. I know exactly what you're talking about. I just didn't know that was the proper term. Thank you very much for the clarification.
Yes. So I've replaced a bunch of wiring. The underdash harness was completely cut up. The guy broke off the ignition cylinder, so just put in a push button start with a toggle switch, which was fine. It was this fun weekend ride.
Okay.
I got it because I want it to be my daily driver, my going to town rig. And
Come on, Mo, we're going to
Saturday
town.
go to meeting.
yeah. So
He did that once.
so I
Found a bunch of Nazis.
so I replaced a bunch of wiring. Replaced all of the lights in it with LEDs. Put flat fenders on it. Put steps so that my lovely better half can actually get into the Jeep. It's lifted about 4.5 inches. So
Nice.
she's 5'2". So
Not that
yeah.
there's anything wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with it at all. Just she needs some assistance with getting into the Jeep.
Understood.
Yeah. I have a Jeep as well, and it was going to become my day-to-day, going to town vehicle, but due to a job change and a Jeep, although mine does have doors, at least half doors.
Mine has full doors.
And
I just don't put them on.
Yeah, I know.
Because I'm not an idiot.
Well,
Because if you're going to blow the doors off, I put them on in the first place.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
Heidi makes more money than me, so she gets to decide whether the doors are on or off. But I'm getting rid of my Jeep, but I picked up, and it's not my favorite car, but man, I love my pick 'em up truck. I love it. I really enjoy it. Chevy Silverado 1500, full cab. Excited about it.
Man, we are all
Nice
getting
truck.
new cars.
Nice truck.
Yeah, don't
We've
tell
mentioned
Zach; he'll get mad at me.
We've
Now-
mentioned everybody.
You guys are waxing something about Jeeps. And here I am, a Land Rover guy.
I know.
Again, can't hide money.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you know what? Land Rover's electrical system, when
It's
when
Lucas?
it's when it's factory, it's better than what I had when I bought the Jeep.
Yeah. So, first of all, let's make a distinction. Range Rover is dilettante, rich, landed gentry bullshit.
Correct.
Land Rover is for people who actually want to have.
Rove Land.
The land, yeah.
Yeah. I have a 1965 Land Rover Series 2A 88 station wagon. And the reason why it's called station wagon is because it doesn't have the glass windows on the side of the top. It's a hard top. Like there's no
It's
glass in the top. But I bought that thing in college after my Honda CRX was wrecked, and I got insurance money, and I said, you know what? I couldn't find another CRX to buy, and I said, you know what? I want something that I've always wanted. And I looked around. I found outside of Atlanta somebody selling a Land Rover for around the money that I had to spend. I think I paid $4,500 for it. Took 3 weekends to drive that thing back to Gainesville because it kept breaking on the side of the road.
Oh my God.
And I
Well,
kept
it's a
having
Land Rover.
well, I kept having to order. This guy used it as kind of a farm vehicle. It's a right-hand drive.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Three on the tree.
Okay.
and it was all original. Like everything in it was original. It was
just earned a
Yeah.
slot of respect right there.
Yeah. This thing, and it took 3 weekends because I had classes to go to. So my friend and I would drive up there. I would order parts from Rovers North, the East Coast distributor of Land Rover parts, and then I would have them shipped, and then we'd go up on the weekend, and I'd work on it on the side of the road wherever it died. We'd fix something. I JB welded the radiator to stop a leak to get it back, and then that ended up being a daily driver for almost 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Once I got it home, I actually fixed a bunch of the stuff, and I still own it. But my plan now is to do a full frame-up restoration and everything with a brand new frame because the frame has a lot of rot. But the Land Rover, in its early incarnations in the 60s and including the Defenders that go into the early 90s, that is a true 4x4 utilitarian vehicle.
Right, that was Jeep
Yeah.
copy, or that was the British copying Jeep.
Why? Why is that? Do you know?
Well,
Because
the
Jeep
story?
was first.
No, I don't know the story.
Okay. Think about all of the Allied
Did Brent tell you this?
in World War II. Think about all the
It's in his
Allied bases in England where they were launching
3
B-17
pages.
attacks and things like that into Germany. All of these Willys Jeeps
We fought the
were there, and when the war was over,
We fought the
the
Germans.
country was like, the United States was like, it's not cost effective to like ship back a bunch of cheap ass Willys Jeeps. Just leave them. And so in 1947, the very first Land Rover was created based on the fundamental design of the Willys Jeep. But it was
So yeah, they
obviously
copied.
changed. Yeah.
but-
Well, and you know who else did that? Toyota with the Land Cruiser, because
Yep.
they took Willys Jeeps
Yep.
And really,
from the occupation of Japan and Okinawa and all that, and they said, "Hey, this is a pretty damn good design,
yeah.
and we're going to make a Land Cruiser."
I'm trying to remember who it was. One of the Japanese automakers actually had, up until recently, I mean like early 2000s, actually had a deal with Jeep where they would make Jeeps.
Interesting.
They're themselves over there.
I did not know that.
And I can't remember who it was. I saw it.
Datsun?
I don't know.
That would be Nissan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But no, I can't remember
Be
who it was.
racist about it.
I don't know. That's nice.
Well, and also case study and not seizing the moment, because Land Rovers were around before people used the term SUV. And then SUVs become this hot item, and Land Rovers on average, size-wise, aren't as American big. And I really think they missed the boat, because luxury-wise, they sell fine. But they could have really, I think, seized the market, and they did.
But you're thinking of Range Rover,
Okay.
right? A Land Rover. In fact, just 2 weeks ago in traffic in town, I was behind a Land Rover Defender.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is the last iteration of the true Land Rovers before you get into the Discoveries and the all the SUV crap, and then of course Range Rovers. But this Defender, I'm in a car, I'm in a Honda. This Defender right ahead of me in traffic was easily 2 feet narrower than this Honda that I was driving, and remarkably short. It was actually it was a 4-door, so it would have been a 110, which is the wheelbase. They refer to them as 90s and 110s based on wheelbase.
Sure.
And then there's a rare 120, which is a super long wheelbase. It doesn't matter. I'm like, this vehicle is tiny.
Yeah.
It's not an SUV. It's a UV. It's a
Yeah.
utility vehicle.
But either way, they just couldn't. I feel like they had a ready foot in the door, and then they couldn't capitalize. And I mean, that's not like the company's doing awful.
I don't
They
know
couldn't
their
capitalize
business
on
model.
so much
I don't
of
think
the-
they really care about the American.
So-
Maybe not. But
So you're saying it's not a Suburban?
It ain't a Suburban. It ain't a Jimmy. It ain't a
What's the
whatever.
Toyota version? It
Land
looks
Cruiser?
like, maybe it's
Yeah,
like
the Land-
the JTJL.
Yeah, FJ.
the ones with the big white top.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fun-
but
funny story,
if you
I
go
just-
back
I-
in time, they get smaller and smaller, and they look more like Willys Jeeps and like Land Rovers.
Okay.
They all have a common.
I
origin.
just looked up
Yeah.
Japanese Jeep makers,
Mhm.
and Toyota had a Toyota Jeep BJ. They got sued by Jeep and renamed it Land Cruiser.
Oh,
There we
interesting.
go.
I've had a GP.
Ah, so really,
Well, how pleasant
and
are
that's
you?
why your license is suspended.
All right. Let's do a quick round, real quick of something.
Okay.
Okay, what you got, UPC?
Can we pause? Pause.
For station identification.
Yeah.
All right. So, next question for the evening: what is the worst car you've ever owned? And we're going to start with Bill.
Hands down, the worst car and first car that I actually owned that was mine, not somebody else's in the family, even though my sister, Jean, the Bean, wants to pretend it is because she paid for the new leaf springs and the all-around recap snow tires that made it sound like AJ Foyt was getting on the interstate. was a 1974 Chevy Nova with a straight six, army green. Had so much rust up in Ohio. Believe it or not, that's how they say it in Ohio. I would get up in the morning, I would go out, I would peel pieces of metal off the fender and then hit it with the green spray paint. If you put something in the trunk, when you got home, there's no guarantee it was still there. My sister actually was driving one time, rolled the window down, hand crank, we're talking 74, and it's my sister. She went to hand the teller at a drive-through bank her check, and she dropped it, and it fell into where the window rolls up and down in the door, and she's like, crap. She opened the door, and a check fell out the bottom of the door.
That's fantastic.
Before I got the new leaf springs on this thing, you would cross the railroad tracks, easy for me to say, in Bethesda, Ohio, and the bodyguard would hit the axle because the leaf springs were dead. They were broken. And I got new leaf springs on it, and because so much of the metal of this car was gone, when I put the new leaf springs on, the trunk, the rear bumper came up to about my belly button because it was so light in the back, because there was nothing left of this car. Now, I say worst car, it was free. It was gifted to me. So that was its I had a job at Denny's, not a racist restaurant, but I would get done at 7 in the morning. I would go out at 5:30 and start my car so I didn't stall out crossing the interstate and get crushed. Yes.
You know, Denny's is just Waffle House for people who can't fight.
I, having worked at Denny's, would disagree.
Wow!
They could fight.
Okay then.
And they had a Western omelet. And a Western omelet is nothing more than a green pepper and onion omelet with a Marlboro crushed in the middle of it.
Denny's special.
So what's that?
It was called the Super Bird.
I have never eaten anything other than moods over my hammy at Denny's because they got me with the name.
So that was my worst car I ever owned.
Alright, so I'm going to go next. Worst car I ever owned was a 1986 Ford Escort.
Oh,
You could have said any year.
I'm sorry.
And I think it was an 86. It might have been an 87.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It was a terrible, terrible car. It was not a joy to drive. It was downright embarrassing to be in.
How did you fit in a Ford Escort?
Not well.
I'm just glad I wasn't a Yugo.
No. No, I have that much pride.
It was a Ukraine.
And we're assuming you're still a virgin at this time
Nope.
because you were just asexual during the time that you owned it.
Nope, married, had a baby. The reason for the Escort was we needed two cars, and the other car we had was
Chevy Cavalier.
no was actually a
nice Reliant automobile.
an 84 300ZX Turbo, which
Nice.
only has two seats. So needed a place to put the baby seat.
There you go.
Hence the Escort.
But that wasn't the 300ZX a hatchback at that time?
It was.
You could have bolted some
Shut up.
welded some
It was a turbo
Yeah.
5-speed car.
You could have
I'm not
created
adding
now
anything
hard
to
points.
it. Not
Hard
adding-
points for the baby
I'm not
seat
adding
in the
any weight to
hatchback
that
area.
car. That car was fun. Wasn't the greatest car I ever owned, but it might have been the funnest car I ever owned. Because Garcon Point Bridge had just been built, and much like today, no one was using it. So I did.
You put out a CD with the Miami Vice theme. Jan Hammer.
No.
And you're just
Molly Hatchet.
Oh God.
No. The motor.
Down the road.
The sound of that freaking motor was my soundtrack. I think this, and then when the turbo kicked in, freaking awesome car. Yeah, so that was mine. Fur.
Well, that's a toss-up.
Oh,
They were my first two cars.
okay.
And you probably remember my first car, Larry. It was my older
because
brother
you
Steve.
sold it to him.
It was my older brother Steve's first car as well.
It was the Mets baseball, wasn't it?
No. That would be awesome.
The Wienermobile.
That would be pretty cool.
But it was a 73 Dodge Dart.
Oh, the
With a
dart.
slant six.
Yes, with the
Yep.
slant
Yes,
six.
slant six. I am a huge
And-
fan of that engine.
And that car, when it first came out, was a really, really nice car. By the time I got a hold of it, so my older brother, who is only 22 months older than me, when he graduated high school, he left, joined the Navy, and he said, "Hey, if you can get this thing running, it's yours."
The
So-
pisser?
Now,
No.
my older brother, Steve, Drew's a pisser. No,
Stay tuned, folks,
no.
for a very special episode.
Right. You know, when you met Steve, he wasn't sure if, like you, he actually went to high school with you or not. You know? That's talking to Bill, by the way. Anyway, so, well, he had bought it off of Charlie. Well,
There was no list. He bought it off of Craig.
right.
Charlie.
That's just Craig.
He bought it from
Charlie
Steve.
G?
No,
Oh.
the other one. Bought it off his grandfather for $300.
Ooh.
Wow.
Back in 1988, I think, maybe.
That's what cars cost back then.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
the
the
used
good old
market.
days.
well, it was a 16-year-old car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He paid $300 for it. He drove it around for his senior year of high school, and he ragged the shit out of it because that's
Obviously.
what high school kids do
Yeah.
to their first cars.
Yeah.
So when he was leaving, he's like, "Hey man, if you can get that running, you can have it." All right.
So challenge accepted.
Right. So I put about $600-700 into it. Got it running.
Doubled what it was worth.
Double what he had paid for it.
Right.
Well, I actually got the gas gauge to work. I mean,
Wow.
the entire time he had it,
Sharing.
there was no gas gauge. Like
It's really,
every 3 days he was running out of gas. So I thought I had more gas.
that's what the odometer is for.
Right.
That didn't work either.
Yeah.
Really, the fuel gauge is the least important gauge. I want oil pressure, oil temp, coolant temp. I don't give a shit about gas gauge because I can just run it out of gas once, and now I know what the odometer should be as my gas gauge.
But anyway,
Well, unfortunately,
the
he wasn't around.
floorboard was rusted out. So like anytime you went through a puddle or anything, it was Old Faithful, just like shooting up into the
It was like jacuzzi jets.
Oh, you'd be lucky. That would have been board one.
It was like a bidet.
You'd be
It's the
lucky.
motion in your backside.
A bidet in reverse.
Right. But so and of course, so I got it running. I drove that around for my senior year, and I ragged it out too, and finally, apparently, I was young, stupid, and 16, 17, and
Full of cum.
didn't. It was back then.
Twice as much.
What's her name?
Yeah. So. Yeah, I eventually didn't know what oil was. So had never put any more oil into the damn thing. And eventually I cracked the block on it.
Okay.
So, but then I got another car.
Oh God.
Upgraded 3 whole years to a 76 Chevy Malibu.
Okay. That's actually I like that
Now,
car.
now the problem with this car was,
Chrysler to GM.
the problem with that car was
It wasn't a 67.
the headlights never worked.
Well,
So-
as Lucas said, a gentleman does not motor about after dark.
Right. Fair enough. But when the streetlights came on, I had to go home. So
Didn't we all back
This
then?
is like your childhood in New Jersey.
Right, exactly.
Hey, the streetlights are on. I gotta get home.
Right. So like, I'd be.
So did Becky Reynolds.
So I'd be out
Yeah, but
somewhere.
when it got
you know,
dark, Becky Reynolds' headlights actually turned
Oh,
on.
hang on.
Hold on a minute. But try telling your baseball coach, hey coach, I gotta go. It's getting dark out. Like, like,
Wait, they had night games back then?
yes. Oh, I'm the second youngest person here.
But he could only play the first 2 innings because then the lights came on.
Right. Good thing
That's
I
how he
wasn't-
guaranteed he'd be a starting pitcher.
Yeah, good,
Yeah.
good thing I wasn't the closer.
Yeah.
Wow.
I got. Since you brought up Dart, when I traveled back from that country I visited, Arkansas, we referenced
Pirate Kansas.
a few weeks ago.
Pirate Kansas.
A friend of mine said, "Hey, I bought this car while I was out here. It was a '67 Dodge Dart. Can you drive it back, and then you guys can bring it down to college in Pensacola and bring it to me, and you can use my car to get home." So we were like, okay, fine. And it was a '67 Dodge Dirt because the A had fallen off, and it was a Dodge DRT.
DRT, a special homologation model.
And it's really
Rally
weird if
Championship.
you've ever if you've ever driven this part of the show brought to you by Five Hands Bourbon. But if you've ever driven back from Arkadelphia, you've got to go past several big airports.
Okay.
The fuel gauge not only didn't work, the fuel tank had a hole in it. The radiator had a hole in it. There was no back window. We played a game. See how long you could get a wadded up paper towel to dance on the trunk of the car at 65 miles an hour. And every time we would drive by an airport, we would call into the tower. Oh, this is a DRT 67. DRT 67. Just checking for a fuel consumption gauge. And the tires were bald. And back there, they had what they called, the pavement was called a bitumen. And every time you went to go across a bridge and the abitment changed, there was a tractor trailer next to you and you would just get sucked up underneath it. And it was the scariest ride. And we spent the night in Nashville, and I left the teddy bear my now wife, Heidi, you've heard of her, gave me. And
Never
I
heard of
left
her.
it in the Dodge Dirt.
Oh.
And when we got up in the morning, it was gone.
Oh.
And somebody...
Wait, hang on. Someone stole the teddy bear out of the
I may have left it in the hotel room and told her it was stolen out of the Dodge Dart.
She listens to this.
You know what? No, she doesn't. She can't read.
Can't use a web browser.
But my friend Vern, I didn't go back to college.
do you mean, Vern?
I moved to Maine and married Heidi. Vern went back to college, and he was driving said DRT 67 down the highway, and when he woke up, he was at an angle because he was in the median at about a 30-degree angle with 3-foot tall grass blowing by him. And I said, "What did you do?" He goes, "Well, I just ramped back up onto the interstate." And he said that was about 300 yards before the bridge. Otherwise, he'd Thelma and Louised it. And then about an hour down the road, the engine, he didn't know what oil was either. And when he got to college, he told our friend Steve, "Hey, your car is somewhere up near Huntsville, Alabama. If you want to go get it, you can go get it." This car wasn't worth a bus fare to go get it. But Larry drives the Dodge Dart now, but like the Tom Brady Dodge Dart version.
Correct. Yeah. The 2015 Unlimited.
One point of clarification: who sent you with the Dart? Who sent the Dart when they said take the car and drive it to?
College buddy Steve. We were all out in Arkansas
Not to be
selling
confused
books
with
door
Vern's
to
brother,
door.
Steve.
No.
Did you check to see if Steve maybe had bought a life insurance policy?
I mean, me and Vern.
You and Vern.
Vern.
Just because, I mean,
I got to tell you, it
Worth the
was a
gamble.
harrowing ride. But I'll tell you what, the games that we played, I mean, games people play, take them or you leave them. And, you would wad a paper towel up, and you'd be sitting in the back seat, and you'd lightly toss it out where there used to be a rear window. And
where all the carbon monoxide comes in.
the eddy currents would hold that paper towel, and you would have well, we didn't have a stopwatch. Come on, we didn't have a gas gauge. And we had a fuel leak, and a radiator leak, and an oil leak, and I think we were leaking belts. A belt leak. A serpentine leak.
Now, those remind me about my old Dart.
You leaking
Where-
the magic smoke out of the wiring too?
Like when the radio died and everything, somehow like we put new speakers in, but we still had the holes for the old speakers on like kind of the back dash or whatever. Only being a dumb high school kid, I had a cooler underneath.
That's
one of those-
redundant.
Yeah, it sure is. But I had a cooler underneath the one of the holes, so you reach in and get your
Beers.
soda.
Yeah. I had a beer cooler in high school too.
No one can see my air quotes.
I had a beer cooler in my backseat of my
And
Honda
then-
Civic in high school.
And then the other hole had the trash can. So
Nice.
it was like, all right,
Nice.
it was a system,
Yeah.
because and I mean, like, yeah,
So what you're saying, it was a production car.
absolutely.
All right, let's move on.
Oh my goodness.
Paul?
Well, it's really hard for me to remember the name of this car because I blocked it.
Name
Yeah, whatever the name was of
Its
this car.
name
Its name
was Robert Paulson.
Oh my God, you're right. It was the
Its name was Robert Paulson.
it was the Paulson 2000.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. But thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm home for a summer for college. I'm home from college for a summer. Easy for me to say. And I'm working with
No.
my dad for the summer. And whatever one spare car we had left between me and my brother had died. But my dad had acquired this little red vehicle. This was a production vehicle, but it looked
Was it a
like
Barchetta?
something that someone may have just slapped together because it didn't make any sense. It had a back seat that folded down. It had a hatchback. I think it was called a Chevy 100 because I think that was the sticker price. It was $100. It was horrible, and it had little tiny tires like you'd see on the old Mini Coopers.
Like 12-inch?
Like what? Yes, I mean it looked like it didn't make
Like the
any-
Red Flyer.
Oh my gosh, it was horrible, and I don't know what it had for an engine, but it took forever to get to the speed limit, and I always thought I would be killed just trying to merge anywhere or take a right turn. It didn't matter, and it had one of those like shifting from park to drive right in the middle, like it was designed, like it was cool, and you could see the ground through it. Right, it had that. The shifter had those little like a sweeper kind of thing, and you could see the ground, and it smelled bad, and it had an AM/FM radio. It was horrible, and it was just the worst experience driving that thing for several months. And again, I don't even know if I saw another one like it. It was like taking an Escort and making it worse.
Oh, Volkswagen Rabbit.
I don't.
Yes.
I don't know what.
Chevette?
I can't remember what it was called, but it was. I was sure if I ever got in an accident, I would die. It didn't matter what happened. It could have been a little old lady bumping me from
Like
behind.
if you hit a small pug.
It didn't. Right. I figured if I hit a pothole, I might be ejected. It was horrific.
Would it stop at a dime?
Maybe so.
Because it couldn't get over it?
Something like that. Yes, with the hatchbacky thing.
Yeah.
Is it a Chevette?
That's a Chevette.
Oh
Any
my
of you
God.
ever do anything?
Oh, they were
You don't
horrible.
want
And this one was
You do
red
not
and
want
it
to
was
go to there.
fading, and I was like, no one could have actually bought this car ever. I don't. Anyway, it was terrible, and or as Charles Barkley would say, it was terrible.
There it is in red.
Oh my God, that's it.
Yep.
That's the
It's
car.
a Chevette.
No, I'm having NyQuil shivers right now. It was horrible. What does it say? 81, 82?
Yeah.
How long do they make it?
Oh, they made
81,
it longer
82.
than that. Here's
Too
a
long.
77.
So, dude, you had a bet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the joke back then. I forgot about that.
Oh God,
I
that
had
looks
a-
like an
When I was a
that
little
looks
kid,
like an
in the-
AMC Gremlin.
When I was a little kid, my babysitter
Oh,
had
no, they
a
look worse.
Chevette,
It looks worse
and
than
the
a
joke
Gremlin.
was she drove a van.
Yeah.
But now,
Gremlin at least had some style.
and now, gents, help me out on this.
Oh, come on, the
Help me out on
Gremlin
this
is
one. From what I understand,
AMC
so bad it's
Pacer.
good.
with American car companies is they have this long range plan. They plan ahead. They're like, oh, we're doing this now and then. And I remember Popular Mechanics, like 77, seeing the 84 Camaro that looked nothing like the Camaro. Okay, so they're planning ahead. So what I would think about is, so some engineer 10 years before or 12 years before said, hey, you know what we're going to do in 10 years? We're going to make this car. And a bunch of well-educated, well-paid, accomplished engineers sat around a table and said, yes.
We're gonna call
Yes, this is the
We're
car.
gonna call it
we're
the.
gonna
We're gonna
make.
call it the Chevy shitbox.
Yeah.
No, that
The
won't
Nobot.
sell. Wait, what's our best-selling car? What's the car we have
Corvette.
that
We're
everyone
gonna
likes?
Corvette.
Corvette.
We're gonna
so let's use
apply
vet.
that name.
No one will be able to tell the difference.
As Rob
Or we're just gonna redesign the Corvette and make it shitty.
Oh.
as Rob Schneider said, who are the marketing executives who came up with this?
Probably
right.
say one's from Bud Light.
So UPC,
All right, UPC. Worst car you've ever
Worst
owned.
car
Okay,
ever.
as usual, I'm gonna give two stories. One is the worst car I've ever owned.
In
If it
memory
wasn't-
of Brent.
If it wasn't for the fact that Ferg already did it, I would have said no. But
Well, the second, all right, first story
Sorry,
is a car that I owned, and I inherited this car from my grandmother who died, and she owned it
rest
since
in peace.
Rest in peace.
She will be missed.
new. This was a 1985 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham, which was actually a rare model. It was a two-door, the last year of the rear-wheel drive, heavy, big chassis Cadillacs. Before they went to this really lightweight GM chassis
Wait,
with
this
this
is one of the
single
worst
run-
cars you've ever owned?
Yes,
Can't hide
But it was-
money.
this fucking thing.
No, this Lamborghini I had. Oh, my
Okay, first of all, I've only ever in my entire life owned two cars with automatic transmissions, both of which were given to me. The Cadillac and then a Jeep Grand Cherokee that I promptly sold.
You did.
Yeah. And I sold the Cadillac after about 2 years. And this thing was ridiculous. It was this champagne gold color with the vinyl roof setup going on.
I
It
love
had-
it so far.
Yeah.
it was a Petmobile.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know what?
Your grandma was a pimp.
Let's let's own it. Let's own it. So I got the gold chain license plate frame. I had little 8-ball valve stem caps and the vertical door lock caps that go in there. Little 8 balls. I had the fuzzy dice, and then I had a friend of a friend who was an airbrush artist.
Wait, we said
did
worst
did an
car.
airbrush front tag, and the girl that I was dating at the time, her first name began
If
with
I
a
had
C,
that
and
car-
it said C's Boo.
If I had that
And so
car,
I had
I would
a
open up the
front
trunk
tag
and
with
Chevette
this
in it and
airbrush.
that all over the place.
I had a front tag with this airbrush C's Boo with a gold chain around that, and that was my Pumobile. But the problem is, this fucking Cadillac is notorious for implementing technology decades before it works.
Yes.
So was it a diesel?
So it had it was a.
It had
V8.
white walls.
No, it was a V8, but it was
Not that
the
it should be
all
wrong.
aluminum sleeve V8 that was a notorious piece of crap. So I drove it gingerly, for damn sure. It didn't even have a cassette deck. It just had an AM/FM radio. Everything was original,
Wow.
right?
Boo.
But they only made about 2,500
not even an
of
8-track?
these. And that was it. That was the end of the rear-wheel drive Cadillacs.
So
For-
now
for
go ahead and
decades,
tell us your
right?
story about the worst car you ever owned.
No, hold on. I constantly got.
I
Oh,
sound-
and it had the rear airbag lift suspension shit, the ride
wait,
leveling crap.
The
They would
worst car
blow out all the time.
didn't have a cassette deck.
I
That-
feel like
that makes it his worst
I'm
car.
sorry, I got to interject. I feel like I'm talking to Prince Harry, and he's like, "Oh my God, this Aston Martin
I got a DB5.
Had a dent.
DB7 when
had a
I
dent
really.
in the rear left fender."
Well,
Anyway,
wait.
Point of
You're
clarification.
way missing the mark.
Did you call your grandma U or Grandma C?
what do you?
UPC? I just didn't know. Like, how would it? Did you call?
Oh,
grandma
it's my
UPC?
my paternal grandmother, so that would
Did you
be
call her?
Grandma P.
Oh, Grandma P. Okay, all right. Well, then I stand corrected.
P for paternal.
I would. Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, so
Thank you.
where I lived at the time in Gainesville is an area that no longer really exists. It was called the Student Ghetto. It was the outlying 5 blocks surrounding the University of Florida
On
campus,
Archer Road.
where it was all no. That's not the Student Ghetto. This was
Oh,
5th Avenue and 17th
Glory.
Street.
great. Because I
This
did
was-
Archer Road, and I don't know what this place must have been.
Yeah,
like.
this was like old little houses, like you would find on the
Sure.
west side of Pensacola, like little off-grade shacks, shotgun houses, and whatever. And the property was worth hundreds of thousands, but they were still renting it out to students for $500 a month. You know?
Let me guess,
So-
most of the Lamborghinis didn't have factory tires.
There were none. Except, no, for the Bull Gators who came in for home games. But anyway,
And the spoilers.
But Fifth Avenue, when you went across 13th Street, which is 441, we're going east.
Mm-hmm.
That is no longer student ghetto; it's the real ghetto, right? It's whatever you want to call the real ghetto, but it's the people who have nothing to do with the university that are just poor folks. Skewed demographically, ethnographically in a certain direction, but they've just been living there, and the university has built itself up around this time, and those homes are owned by Grandma Jenkins, but it's
We may
the
have
ghetto, right?
casted
Or whatever you want to call
the new UPC too close to Brent.
it. Anyway, I would constantly get people knocking on the door like, "Hey man, you want to sell me that car? I want that car."
Which car?
The Cadillac.
Oh,
But what he
fucking
hates
Fleetwood
is the
Drum.
free cassette.
The thing, no, because it's an automatic goddamn transmission. I hate cars with automatics
And the
and American cars and
Exactly.
huge land yachts.
it's like, give me 3 on the tree and let me be me.
And
I don't know what that means.
let me reiterate, just for
What?
those of you who might have lost
I
track.
don't know what that
Let me
means.
reiterate: automatic transmission, American, large, long wheelbase, wide body, huge fucking hood and fenders. Not a sports car. Definitely, I hate it.
And no
I
cassette.
made the best out of it for a little bit because I didn't have a lot of cash flow to
And you needed a
do
car.
better.
Love your
But
sacrifice.
then I sold it on Craigslist. No, eBay Motors. Sold it on eBay Motors back in the late 90s, around 01,
Whoa.
2001, to a guy named Paulie from Long Island.
Hey.
And this guy, Paulie,
Never heard of them.
flew to Tampa with his girlfriend,
Forget about it.
who looked like a hairdresser, who needed a better hairdresser. They had already bought another caddy in Tampa area, and they drove up to buy mine, and they were going to drive both of those caddies to Long Island, where Paulie was a
Long
caddy
Island.
guy. He knew caddies, and he's like, oh yeah, I can sell these, and I can upgrade them, I can fix them up, and whatever. Paulie bought my caddy for $2,500.
Well, okay, and you bought it for nothing. And how old was this car when you sold
It
it?
was an 85.
You
I got
sold
it
a
in
16-year-old
2000,
car
2001.
for $2,500.
And I did not want the car at all. I just got
But
it.
you got monies.
You got,
Yes.
you got
Okay,
cash over.
so
And
the second one.
The second story is really my parents' story. My parents bought this GM. It was some kind of GM, Buick, whatever. I don't know. It was a station wagon with that early 1980s GM diesel engine.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
We already know.
Oh.
Anyone listening already knows how this is going to end.
yeah.
Yeah. And this engine shat itself like 5,000 miles in.
Yeah.
So they got a new one. They got a replacement.
Right.
Right? No charge. Yeah, we'll give you another one. That engine shat itself 1,000 miles later.
Yeah.
So then,
Well, because GM just took a gasoline engine,
yeah, and tried to put
replaced it
100.
with diesel, and it would snap the camshaft.
Yeah, because it was built on a gas engine,
Yeah.
not a
My
gas
father-in-law
block, not
had
a diesel
that
block.
same pickup truck.
By the way, I'm sorry, Paul has something.
know it's
Just
what-
remember another vehicle.
Uh-oh.
Fucking sucked ass. It was a. I don't even remember what kind of fucking Toyota truck it was.
the Toyota anal slurper?
Yes. So I own this truck for.
Buyer beware.
I bought it off of a used car lot for however much it was.
Too
And
much
Right. A month later, it slung a rod.
because you didn't know what oil was.
Well, no, at that point in time, I didn't know what it was.
Oh,
And
you
then
learned?
so when I bring it back to the damn lot, like what the fuck, like you sold me a fuck, like well, you don't have any oil in it. I'm like, I just assumed you would have oil in it when I fucking bought it from you. And anyway,
Not cool.
I got my money back and everything. But it was like, God damn it, like
Now,
really?
And I didn't mean to interrupt. I would just, but as Bill said, my dad had a caddy with the diesel, and they replaced the engine.
My dad had
twice.
a pickup truck that
Yeah.
they tried to do that to, and he
Is this early 80s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah,
imagine how much
pre-85.
money they lost.
Yeah, they screwed the pooch. So, quick aside,
Yes, sir.
So it's like,
the engine in the in my Land Rover, the 2.25 liter petrol engine, was built originally as a diesel block, and it was converted. It was in the Land Rover was made into a petrol engine. Therefore, it's indestructible.
petrol, he means gasoline.
All right. But you can't go the other way. You can't take a gas burning engine,
And
petrol
turn it
burning
into a
engine, and
diesel.
turn it into a
Snap
diesel.
it'll
You're
snap
an idiot.
the camshaft
Yeah.
or
Snap everything.
crankshaft.
Yeah, you're crazy. So anyway,
Johnson
so my
rod.
parents,
Well,
rule of
quickly.
threes, comedy rule of threes, the third time around with this car that they got new from the dealership after the first two completely
Shit
shat
the
the
bed.
bed. You owe me a coat, by the way.
you didn't
I
say
said
James.
shit.
Anyway, there is a local automotive kind of guru. I'm not going to mention his name, but he owns and created a
Yes.
shop on.
We all know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know.
On
This-
North Davis.
Yes,
Yeah.
this person was very close friends. Their family, very close friends with my family at the time in the 80s. And he said, what you should do is just go drain all the oil out of the engine, drive up and down between 2 exits on the interstate, and have someone follow you. And when that thing literally kills itself in a drastic way, have the other person just take you home and call the dealership and say, there's my car, I want all my money back, lemon law, mic drop. And that's what they did. They drove up and down between 2 exits on the interstate until that thing just completely destroyed itself. And then the friend of the family, my mom was driving, friend of the family just was right behind, and that thing, smoke everywhere, oil everywhere. Well, not so much oil because the oil's already drained out, but you know.
Yeah.
And they went home, had lunch, called the dealership, said, oh, by the way, your lemon is in between these 2 exits. I'll come back on Monday to pick up my refund check for your piece of crap.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some gangster stuff. Right
Any
there.
of you ever do anything really stupid in a car? I don't
Yes.
mean with a girl.
Yes.
Stupid,
Yes.
not necessarily alcohol related.
Did you say ever?
Did you not hear about the Garcon Point Bridge?
Do you want a list?
I drove the
We're
Dart
going to go long tonight, apparently.
120 miles an hour across the 3 Mile Bridge.
And
Did what?
The Darts?
Yeah,
You know,
you
I
did.
drove that 120 miles an hour across the 3 Mile Bridge.
Wow.
And my buddy was like, all like, he was freaking Scotty. She cannot take it. She's breaking up.
well, I'm not going to go into this one too much, but my first car I ever owned was a '67 Mustang that I blew up the 289 that was in it. So I went and got the shopper from the Tom Thumb. Found a Lincoln Continental for sale and bought said car, pulled the 460 out of it, and squeezed it into the '67 Mustang. And we'll just say that I had a lot of fun in a '67 Mustang with a Lincoln 460 in it.
Now, the one
A
thing,
lot of fun.
Yeah.
the one,
And you were in it mated with the transmission?
Oh no, I used the C6 transmission out of the
Okay.
Lincoln.
the same car.
Yeah, out of Lincoln.
Yeah, the one thing, the first car that Interrupting Heidi and I bought together was an 86 Buick Skyhawk. Because it had more metal than the Chevy Cavalier, the Volkswagen Rabbit, and the Ford Fiesta. There was actually more metal in it.
Was that important?
Well,
For
yeah,
scrap value, I'm assuming?
for protection.
Oh,
Get in a wreck.
really?
Longer
you obviously
longer
never heard
hood.
of Volvo. Could have gotten
We were.
240, a Volvo 240.
I drove a Volvo. I drove a Volvo FE615.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Straight truck, 27 feet long, 6-speed, synchronized gears. But anywho, that was their name.
Synchronized takes all the fun out of it.
I know syncopation does take all.
No,
of it.
and what says more about quality terrestrial travel than a name like Skyhawk?
Yeah, Skyhawk.
Let's make you forget that you have to be in this thing on the ground.
We almost bought
On the road.
We almost bought a
Let's make you
Plymouth.
think
We
you're
almost
in the air.
bought
What
a.
the fuck is a groundhog?
We almost bought a Plymouth Sundance, and we bought the Buick Skyhawk. Well, my Buick Skyhawk was not acting properly, and I was driving home from work one night about 11 o'clock. I was a college student, married, townie, and I'm driving 30 miles to our house in the middle of nowhere, Maine. And I'm driving up the road, minding my own business, and some guy in some souped-up sports car goes blowing by me and then pulls right in front of me, and my headlights are shining on the chrome trim of his differential. You know, jacked up car, badass. and he slowed down in front of me, and I was like,
Air quotes on that.
okay,
Badass, by the way.
okay, fine, whatever. And then he slowed down, so I passed him. And then he comes flying up on me, you know, pulls back in front of me, and cuts me off again. This is like 11 o'clock midnight, and he does this 3 or 4 times, and I can see just the chrome, you know, rivets and whatnot, and whatever that is, the plate, yeah.
the
I don't know.
Cover plate bolts.
Yeah.
Okay. Use your words.
And I don't. Okay.
You didn't know the
I can
word.
see the differential, and it's shiny and pretty, and so probably was he. And I'm in this '86 Buick
Flirting with you, you
Skyhawk
know that, right?
that's got a warped head, and I didn't know that at the time. And so I finally waited, and we're going up I-95 in northern Maine, and we get past one exit, and it's about 15 miles to the next exit. And I hung back, pretending I had lost my manhood. And then I slowly crept up on him, and I'm driving a 5-speed, you know, Buick Skyhawk. And I threw it down into 4th. I went up right on his tail, put my blinker on like I was going to go around him on the left, and I jumped down into the shoulder of the road, past him, and swung up in front of him, and then parked right next to the car in front of him. I was like, motherfucker, you want to go around me? You get on the goddamn shoulder, and made him sit there for 15 miles behind us.
I have done that in New York City
And
on the Long Island Expressway.
I gotta tell you
many
what,
times just to fuck over.
you might be
somebody
tired at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. You do that, that's an adrenaline rush. And that was through the peat bogs of Maine. We brought those up earlier,
Yeah.
off cam, off mic. But man, I'll tell you what, you want to talk about a rush. Wow. And then I did that with Heidi one time. We were in traffic, and it was down to one lane, you know, 35 miles an hour. And we're like, why are we going 35? We go 55 on a one lane. No, you know, cones and all that. And some idiot was following the 35-mile-an-hour law on the interstate, and I just went through the cones and went around him on the breakdown lane, and she got really upset with me, and I was like, well, that's not my first time. But that thing, I mean, there could have been a body on the shoulder of the road. There could have been a broke down truck. Man, it felt good to screw that guy over and make him just. It's like, hey, you can go around me. You're just gonna have to do it on the shoulder of the road.
Felt good to screw a guy.
Felt good to screw a guy.
All right.
So,
I used one ball though.
That's all you need.
our next question. This one should be fun. What car have you always wanted to own? And for this one, we're actually going to start with UPC.
Oh man. Okay. I want to keep this within reason. In other words, not trying to
Not
own
give
some
us
sort
6
of like
cars.
no, but not trying to say like, oh, I want this exotic Le Mans racer, whatever. You know.
I want the space shuttle.
Yeah.
I want
I
an
think
Amish
a
buggy.
reasonable answer to this question
All right.
is, and I believe the year is 1988. I may be off by 1 year. It's a Porsche 944 Turbo S, and it's the only year that they offered this in a particular color. It's called Silver Rosa. It's translated as Silver Rose. It's a metallic. It's like a pink champagne metallic silver.
You know, UPC.
Absolutely beautiful.
Sounds like it.
And it's a Turbo S. It's not like a regular 944. I've driven 944 before. Got it up to 135 and it kind of topped out. But
I was going to say, one reason why we almost didn't pick you up after the sad passing of Brent was because for some reason it always comes down to color with you.
But this is a color that was only offered 1 year, and for this model. And this model was the nuts of a 944. Like 944. Okay, first of all, if anybody listening is a Porsche fan, you're already poo-pooing me for liking a front-engine water-cooled Porsche.
You got that right.
Right? But the Turbo S Silverosa model, this is
Different.
This bad boy, the same model in a different paint job is 20 grand less at auction. This paint job is the nuts. I mean, it's beautiful.
Awesome.
And it's so
It's
unique.
the bee's knees.
It's so unique. It's almost like uranium yellow, but it's so unique and it's beautiful, and it just doesn't. It was only 1 year, and it was only for that model. You could not get that color for the base model. You had to get the Turbo S model to be accessible, or to access that color code.
Wow.
And it's a great one, and it's actually fairly reasonable because it's still under six figures.
Right, it's still
I'm not
44.
I'm not talking about six-figure
Right.
dollar cars or seven-figure dollar cars, because who the fuck cares anymore?
That's awesome.
It's a bunch of goddamn Dubai motherfuckers buying that shit.
Okay.
You know?
Well,
All right, Paul.
all right. So I can make this really quick. There are two cars that I always thought would be great, but apparently they work horrible. One was the Porsche 928, that I liked it would be for risky business.
928 S4.
And it came in a kind of royal pewter color, which I mentioned because the other car I would love to have was a Jaguar XJS, which is a 12-cylinder. But apparently both of those cars, if they ran well, you were great. But the electronics would break, the engines would break, terrible. All right,
British.
so for the car that I want, that I think would work, 69 Camaro convertible. I had a friend in high school that had an orange one, the only orange car I ever thought was awesome, and it was awesome. But I probably would have a red one. But that car I know
Curly
would
comes on the
run
color to him,
and
too.
would be badass. Well, especially orange. So anyway, that's
teaches in
my
university.
so my number one pick would be 69 Camaro convertible.
Well, on an aside, the 76 Celica I learned to drive in was orange.
Mm.
So, I'll go ahead with mine real quick, which would be a 1966 Cobra 427.
Oh, good lord!
It's an awesome car, crazy lightweight with a giant engine in it, and it's just a Ford V8. It's easy to work on. You can change the oil yourself. You can work on everything.
Outstanding choice.
Yeah. I
Outstanding.
mean, I don't have $3 million to buy
And
one.
and it's kind of British in a way.
The bodies were
Great.
British. They were built by
AC.
AC. Yeah.
That magazine
got a
I just
bonnet.
gave you tonight?
Well, I'm sorry.
You're-
The bodies were built by who?
AC.
What does that mean?
It's
Based on an
British company.
AC Ace.
Yep.
Okay, I just didn't know
It's
if
a
that was
British car.
I just didn't know if that was an abbreviation for
No.
Okay.
But yeah, that would be mine.
Ace Frehley designed them.
I got you back in the New York groove. There you go.
Bill?
Mine's pretty simple. The reason I have a 2004 Jeep TJ is because Heidi Interrupts would not let me buy the car of my dreams that I found, which is since I was a freshman in high school. It's been a Mercedes 560 SL Roadster with a hard top and a soft top. 560, 5.6 liter V8 engine in a really, really light body. And you gotta wear a cabbie cap. And she wouldn't let me get it because it only has 2 seats. As UPC
Who
says.
are you hauling around?
Well, that's what I said to her. How many times has your mom been in the back seat of our Ford Focus? Once. And she fits in the trunk.
There we go.
And the Mercedes has a big trunk.
It does.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
I mean, so does her mother-in-law. Or so does my mother-in-law.
I want to disagree on one thing. When you say it's a lightweight chassis, that car is like a 3,500 pound car.
No, it's not.
Mercedes
2,800.
We can look it up, but
I did.
Mercedes never built a very lightweight chassis.
But
for
I've wanted that car since I
Normal
was freshman.
The one you found was beautiful.
And it was burgundy,
Beautiful.
The problem
hard
is,
top, soft top.
did you
garage.
find a manual?
What other kind?
The
is
only
there?
reason why I don't own one is because there were almost no manual
No, this
versions
was
of that
this
car
was an
shipped
80.
to the U.S.
This I want a. Just,
You gotta
you know,
buy a
I wanted.
European
It
version.
was late set. This was an '82.
Yeah.
So it was manual.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Ferg.
Finish up for the night.
Well,
We're
wrap
gonna
us
go with
up,
our
Matt.
guy.
Well, 10-year-old me wants to say Kit from Knight Rider.
Okay.
Right.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
you know,
but
with
then
the-
you
you know-
realize it's a goddamn
Well, yeah,
Pontiac
but it's
Firebird.
But it's a Firebird, and you know, and then like the turbo boost when you jump over soft. That'd be awesome.
Don't mess with the hop.
Right. And, well, fine. Don't mess with the hop. But that's just dumb. So,
I'm glad you recognize it.
right. It was like 40 years ago. That's So now I'm going with a 67 Vet
Okay.
Corvette, not a Chevette.
My question is,
Oh,
why
wait.
67? Why that year?
Was that a
Any particular
Stingray?
reason?
Not a Stingray.
No, Stingray is 66.
Yeah.
The split window.
It had the the fastback. It's just I don't know. I look at it. I just go, that's a beautiful machine,
Yeah.
and
And they are.
they're really fast.
They are.
You know?
They
I
are.
want to go fast.
All right.
Yeah, like Ricky Bobby.
Yeah.
Well, you put a predatory cat in the back seat of a Chevette, you're gonna drive fast.
I mean,
we're
Predatory
gonna
cat
go,
or a cougar.
Yeah.
Like,
You're gonna get more cougars with.
at my age,
You're gonna get more cougars with the Corvette.
Predatory cougar in your back seat, you're gonna park fast.
It ain't got a back seat.
You go from 60 to 0 in a couple of seconds when you get that cougar in the back seat.
That's awesome.
All right, guys. So it's time to wrap things up. Anybody have any last second quick things to add? We'll go around. Bill,
I'm spent.
UPC,
No.
Ferg.
I'm not out of beer. I need to go.
I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did. I hope to be back.
You can come back next week if you want.
Okay.
Paul.
We won't be here.
It's just great to have Ferg on board this week, and I really hope UPC survives the week.
You know what? I've been through a health scare recently,
Uh-huh.
but I've never felt healthier.
That's fantastic.
Just 2 weeks ago, I'm like full of life and energy.
That's
And
outstanding.
it's like I'm indestructible. Nothing can happen to me.
That's great. Well, hopefully there's no misadventure.
Finally, a week without having to find a new UPC.
That would be fantastic.
That will be great.
Of course.
Golf clap.
Well, as far as me, I got nothing else to add. Just like to thank everyone for listening, and I'm sorry that I did not fill my promise from last week that this would be terrible.
It's
I think
terrible.
I think it actually turned out pretty good.
I think it's terrible to anyone who
I wasn't terrible.
has no idea what
I
you're
hope-
talking about.
Well, I hope that everyone enjoyed it. Good night, all.
Good night.
All right.
Look, I'm a little drunk, okay?